Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Young. I'm going to give you a different perspective and take of this agreement, this Paris climate change agreement. Now, my presentation is only one view. You're more apt to go out to YouTube. You can watch different videos from both the left and the right side when it comes to the idea of climate change in terms of the overall impact. What I can say is I bet you could probably put 21, maybe 30 climatologists in the room together, and you probably get 30 different opinions. It's just like when you put economists in the room. So there is no clear consensus that anybody says that climate change is always doom and gloom. What you get is a bunch of people together trying to push their own agendas. And part of that agenda gets pushed because right now it's easy to get government money if you show doom and gloom. And that's something that's never brought out to the surface to discuss the overall climate change. Plus, nothing's ever discussed how the planet itself actually changes in terms of its development over its life cycle. And that's something that never comes into play. The third point I want to make in terms of the overall thing is CO2 is the foundation of life on this planet. Without CO2, we wouldn't have plant or tree life. Here's a little bit about myself. I'm a professional accountant by trade, but I'm more about solutions, and that's something that I like to give out when I do these videos. I'll talk about what the climate change agenda is, and I'll talk about major issues. What it is, basically, UN brought countries together to come up with ways to reduce emissions or try to cap the growth in temperature. And that's really what this is. We had Kyoto in the 90s, which really nobody embraced. So this is the new agenda, or we call it Agenda 21. Now, what are the major issues they want to do? They want to cap temperature growth by 2 Celsius. They don't want to see it go above that. They want to have a universal agreement that all the countries around the world sign. There's some sort of assistance to poor nations. And we'll also look at publishing targets in terms of becoming a carbon neutral economy. In other words, we removed carbon. Let's look at the world's largest emitters right now. And if you see at this chart, it's US, China, and India. Part of that reason is the bulk of their power generation is still coal. So those countries are trying to take initiatives to phase out coal. What you do not see in this list, and what is not coming into play in full-blown understanding, is you're not seeing the fact is OPEC doesn't want to sign this. Because OPEC is the world leading producer of oil. Now you're telling them that they can't produce oil anymore, so you can see why they would be hesitant. Ecuador is listed. Ecuador is a huge mining country. Mining extraction takes resources, and that takes a carbon footprint to get that resources out, to mine it, to deliver it, and to basically form it. And that's something that's not discussed. Now, it's easy to say on the surface we could be carbon free. But go take a drive around your country. Go look at the wind turbines. Go look at the solar panels. Go look at the backup power systems, which are natural gas. Go look at hydroelectric. Go look at vehicle driving. Okay? Go look at moving people around transit. What do they require? They require power. How is that power generated? Right now it's carbon. To replace that would mean battery power. It would also mean how do you replace the components that make up that? And that's steel. Whether that's iron ore is part of it, whether that's nickel, stainless steel, they're part of it, or whether that's wafers, which is silicon. You don't change those products without mining, delivering them, converting them, and that means transforming them, fabrication, and delivering them and installing them without some sort of requirement of carbon. How are you going to replace carbon if it still is required in these turbines? It's still required to manufacture these green technologies. You still need it. So there is no clear agenda on that to tell you how they're going to do that. The second point, the whole world has come out and said we need to do a stimulus of the economy on growth because we're seeing periods of slow growth. If you start bringing in reform policies that go after industry, you're forcing those industries to make adjustments. If they make adjustments, they're likely going to have to transform their business. Some may shut down. Some may have to look at cost increases, which impact the consumer spending. So when you start talking about impacting business decisions, you're actually impacting economic growth. Why wasn't that discussed? And if you have slow economic growth and you hinder it more, you have that revenue bucket that's going to be reduced. If that revenue bucket's reduced, it impacts social programs, from healthcare, education, down to anti-poverty measures to help with income inequality. Where is that discussed? Not discussed. So it's very easy to say that I want to go through this agenda to really bring down emissions within 14 years. But you're asking to transform industry overnight. It can take decades to do that. Where's that discussion? So it's very nice to shake your hands and say, I'm going to go pro-green agenda. But the reality is, how are you going to have oversight? How are you going to ensure that you can phase things out and still keep incomes going up and support industry and economic growth? That's something to watch out for. Second point is, giving money to poor countries, we've already seen that doesn't work well with foreign aid. And you're more welcome to see my foreign aid videos. If you don't provide oversight and ensure that that money goes to reforms, how are you ensuring that's going to transform economies? It's not going to. So that's something to bear in mind. It's nice to say I'm going to sign a deal, but the reality is, how are you going to replace this product? How are you going to support economic growth? How are you going to ensure that cost of goods that people pay aren't hindering them? And that's something that's not discussed. You're more welcome to go out and watch some of my videos from Foreign Aid Clean Technology to see really how this stuff is produced and how oversight hasn't really come into play on foreign aid. Now, there's no denying that we need to take care of the environment better. There's no denying that we should be watching what we do in terms of climate change measure. Is it all doom and gloom? No. What reality we have is we have a bunch of people making decisions that they think are required. They're driving by maybe their own agendas. But they're not about solutions. Okay? They're not about bettering people's lives. They're about short-sighted agendas that will do nothing to do anything but other than add cost. Should we deal with issues that face climate change? Yes, but we have to have a balanced approach. We also have to bring countries in like China, India, and other countries to get them to phase out coal production. We also have to look at how they treat the environment themselves from water and land treatment. We have to look at the overall worldwide growth. The planet's only so big. We have to protect it. Yes, we do. But we cannot be forcing policies down that don't make sense without a clear strategy. And that's where I see the gaps when you start seeing climate change agenda agreements signed. I see gaps. Gaps are not good, because usually when you do see gaps, you see poor implementation, you see hits that only hurt the end person, the taxpayer. And it's something you need to ask questions of your politicians. Are you really looking out for the best interests of us, or are you really pushing an agenda that doesn't make a lot of sense? Thank you.